Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby. Let's join Mike and Kentucky Dave as they strive to be informative, entertaining, and help you keep your modeling mojo alive.
Oh man, Dave, episode 83, and I think somebody let the gremlins out.
Yeah, we're going to get this one in the bag some point.
Well, we're about 2 days off our normal record night. And
yes, that's true.
It's like a dump truck full of life backed up to the house and let her rip, man.
But we're here. We get to talk about models. That's we're doing pretty good.
Pretty good deal. Yep. Well, on that train of thought, Dave, what is up in your model sphere this week?
Well, my model sphere is actually really, really good this week. As listeners know from previous episode, I was supposed to be in a jury trial this week. It's settled at the last minute, so that freed up a bunch of time that I then put to working on the Moosaroo. And now there's at least a glimmer of hope that I will finish the Moosaroo in time for Heritage Con, or in time to get the photos in for Heritage Con. And in the meantime, a lot of the modeling I've been doing, things have been knock wood, things have been going really well. I've been enjoying it. And it's just not only that, but there's been a lot of interaction on the dojo and on Facebook. No matter how my day is going, at some point, I'll get an interaction with one of the listeners, and it never fails to make me smile. My model sphere is darn good. How about yours?
Well, I'm going to elaborate on that Heritage Con mention you gave.
Yeah.
We're going to Canada, Dave.
I know, man. I got final approvals today.
Well, we dropped that Easter egg in the 12-minute model sphere last week. Man, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to this trip, man.
I am jazzed.
We're going to get to hang out with all the Canadian friends we've made over the last 2 or 3 years, and it should just be a really great trip. Now, probably a little shorter than we'd hoped for, but hey, we're going to come.
Yep, we are going to do a dash up and back to Canada, or as I referred to it when talking with my wife, a suicide run. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this should just be a really great trip, Dave. We'll leave out of here early on Saturday, and we'll get up there mid-afternoon. It shouldn't be too bad. And then all day Sunday at the show.
Yep.
And then, we won't be time-pressed to get back, at least to the degree that we want to get up there. So go have a good breakfast with those guys before we head back to the United States.
Now you're assuming that we're not getting stopped at the border and strip searched and the whole 9 yards, either going or coming.
I'm counting on that not happening.
Yeah.
If they break out the gloves, I want to say it's all you, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the solidarity. No, but that should be great. And I'll tell you what. We've got Columbus coming up, then we've got Heritage Con, and at the beginning of contest season is it jazzes you up because you're going to get to see modeling friends, you're going to get to see what everybody's been building, even if you've seen it on the pictures on the internet. There's nothing like seeing it in person, and who knows, you might pick up some interesting stuff along the way. I'm jazzed for it.
Well, I don't know if you listened to the last Plastic Posse podcast, but they were running down their hopeful show attendance here in the first part of the year, and they mentioned Heritage Con. They're actually going to be at their Commie Fest show in I guess that's in Denver.
Yep.
And they won't get to make it up to this one, at least not this year. And JB said it was the largest one-day show in North America.
It could be.
I think he's been before, so
he would know.
He's not one to talk from a position of ignorance, so
yeah,
I'm going to assume that's correct.
I want to see it. I'll be interested to see. I've never been to Heritage Con. I've been to the last Canadian National in Ottawa. I've been to Model Show in Toronto, but I've never been to Heritage Con, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Me too, man.
All right. So since we're recording an episode, you know what that means. That means we got to have a modeling fluid. So what modeling fluid does Mike have?
Well, I hope I've got enough if these gremlins don't go away.
Uh-oh.
Dave, I'm hitting the Russell's Reserve 10-year again.
Ooh, you really must have liked that to bring it back
yeah, it's
so
good
quickly.
stuff. This, my wife gave some to her boss as a Christmas gift. Well, the collective office did, and he really liked it. And we had a listener post a bottle.
Oh yes, we did. You're right.
So saying I'd done them a solid by recommending that one because, I mean, for the price for 10 years, pretty good. Now it's become a regular for me. Not sure it's displaced the bullet yet, but I don't know, man.
There's potential.
Time will tell on that one.
Well, good.
What are you doing? You still working through the beers you got for Christmas?
Yes, I'm working through the beers that I got for Christmas for my wife. She bought them specifically to be the modeling fluids on episodes. And tonight we have from Stone Brewing out of Escondido, California and Richmond, Virginia, Stone Brewing's Delicious IPA. It's a 7.7 ABV IPA.
Another ambitious name.
That's not bad. First impression, very good. We'll see where this gets us by the end of the episode. And there's a Richmond tie-in later in the show.
Oh, okay. I think I know what it is, but we'll see.
Yes.
Maybe two.
Okay.
But we'll save that. I tell you what, though, we're not going to save, Dave.
What?
We're not going to save any of this listener mail because if we do, we're going to have so much next time we won't know what to do with ourselves.
Okay, that's good news. Everybody's through the holiday, the doldrums of January, and people are listening and interacting. So I can't wait. What do we got?
First up is Ray from Bay City, Michigan. That's rainy, gray, mid-Michigan. Now, their show is, we talked about it last time.
Right.
I don't have that in front of me, so I can't say much more about it. But anyway, he's in mid-Michigan. On his bench is a 32nd scale Revell Huey. It's going to become a Canadian SAR bird.
That is one of the first models I remember building as a kid.
Well, Revell had the gunship.
Right. And the one I
helicopter, built, Vietnam shooting up the bridge.
That's the one. That's the boxing I had.
And then he had a Cobra to go kind of with it.
Yep.
Says anyone building this kit needs a playlist. Yeah. Interesting selection. He's recommending Irene Cara's Flashdance. He's got a feeling, I guess. I think that's the song, right?
Yeah.
And Johnny Cash's Ballad of Cumberland Gap.
Oh, that's an interesting and eclectic set of choices. I would have thought we would have gone with Fortunate Son and Ride of the Valkyries and,
Yeah, all that.
All the stuff from Good Morning Vietnam.
Good Morning Vietnam. Try again, Dave. It's Apocalypse Now.
Well, that too. But all the classic 60s Motown stuff.
Yes.
The soundtrack for a number of.
Well, they played "Fortunate Son" by CCR in Forrest Gump, right?
Exactly.
Well, as an aside, I go through the Cumberland Gap every time I go see my parents. So there you go. There's a tie-in. How about that? He claims to be an old and inexperienced modeler, and he appreciates your comment regarding building models in or as subassemblies.
Yep.
It's allowed him to focus on models in sections and better retain his goal. And also, if the model turns out to be a bust, he can always look at a particular subassembly and take something good away.
That's absolutely true.
This may be a crappy helicopter, but damn, that tail rotor's nice.
That's right. That's right. Man, I masked those paint lines on those rotors really well. That's right. Absolutely. You got to take the victories where they come.
Even if you got to scratch around a little bit.
Exactly.
It's got a few questions for the wheel of accidental wisdom, so we'll park those for a little while. And his real question is regarding modeling fluids. He likes Canadian whiskey, but he'd like to try a good rye. Any recommendations?
Now, I'm I'm not a rye guy myself, but I have had the bullet rye, the green
That's
label.
pretty good.
It is pretty darn good.
The Sazerac rye is pretty good.
I've never tried it.
Well, we got a bottle of Nats.
But did you
Yes, you
take
have.
it or did I?
I think you took it because I don't have it.
Oh, I don't
So you might
remember.
need to scratch around there, boss.
Oh, great. I don't remember.
I mean, the volume was forgetful worthy. I mean,
Yeah,
really.
yes, absolutely.
Ray, I will let you know because I had one before Thanksgiving at a friend's house, and I can't remember the name of it, but it doesn't get much better than what I had from that one. So I'll try to follow up. And if I fail to do that, you message me again and remind me, and we'll figure it out.
Just more generally, Mike, anytime we interact with any of the listeners through email or DMs and we say we'll get back to you on something and we don't, please reach out again. Mike and I both have pretty busy lives, especially with all of our family obligations plus work. Mike is putting things in space. It doesn't get more complex than that. So if either one of us forget, don't feel bad about reaching out and saying, hey, you were going to get back to me.
Please do. We can't remember everything.
No. Hell, we can't even remember half of everything.
Up next is Zach Peace from sun-drenched Mansfield Center, Connecticut. Oh, man. He enjoyed the Wheel of Accidental Wisdom.
I enjoy doing those.
Well, he says, in this world of social media, he's wondering. Well, let me back up. Jim was talking about fear as an inhibitor to our modeling, and he thought that really hit home with him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to beat it to death, but he said it's a real thing, and you have a vision in your head of how you want things to go, and when it goes pear-shaped along the way, that's a fear you develop that's going to happen, and when it does happen, I guess you kind of feel kind of crappy about it.
A corollary to that is the better the model's going, the more that the fear creeps in, because you get 90% of the way there. You're much more fearful you're going to screw it up in the last 10% than being halfway into it and being fearful you're going to screw it up.
Well, and he goes on to talk about social media. I mean, how that's kind of possibly made this worse because
I agree.
It's the whole the dare to compare.
Yes.
And that's true not just in modeling, but
Oh yeah.
You got these quote unquote friends out there on Facebook who are going to Tahiti and
right,
riding around in sports cars and crap, and they're probably not really doing that stuff.
That's absolutely true. The folks who are really posting their life on social media are presenting an image, not an actuality. Social media is a double-edged sword. You and I have talked about YouTube extensively and Facebook and the dojo community and all of the pluses that you can get out of that. And there are tons and tons of pluses, but you can, especially if you let it get to you where you start comparing yourself to other people, you can get into your head so deep that it basically will freeze you from modeling. Like anything else, moderation's the key.
Well, he says compared to some of the publications before the internet, the forums that came with the dawn of the internet, he's like Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff is just different because you got this combatant flow of exquisite work from top shelf modelers all over the world. And it's easy to set your expectations high and even suffer some intimidation from it all.
It is. It's a far, as opposed to like the early days of the internet where there were forums you chose to go to. With Facebook and Instagram and all, it's a fire hose coming at you.
Oh yeah.
Much of it curated by AI and algorithms. And if you look at some things more, you're going to get fed a ton more of that stuff. And yeah, it's easy for that to get inside somebody's head. So, I love social media. I have praised it to high heaven as to what it's done for us and our podcast and the community we've built. But man, if you find it, you've got to be careful and curate your consumption of it. and make sure that it is a positive experience. And if it stops being a positive experience, take a break, take a step back, and figure out what you need to do to make it a positive experience again.
Or just turn those off for a little while.
Exactly. And I think that's probably healthy no matter what.
And also, Dave, music did not die in 1976. If you insist on this heresy, I will refer you to Bruce Springsteen, U2, and Van Halen. Don't make me get out the peanut butter whiskey.
I appreciate it, but you're wrong. Music did die in 1976. Bruce Springsteen is probably one of the prime examples of that. Don't start me down the Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen. I don't want to get into that, but I have been enjoying a lot of older music off of YouTube and really been enjoying it while I've been building the Arma P51. So whatever period you like, there's lots of good music out there for you.
Chuck Doherty, North Little Rock, Arkansas. You wanted to hear from somebody who keeps the boxes for his completed kits? I'm that guy.
Oh, wow.
I keep all the unused parts and aftermarket for each completed kit in this corresponding box. Then if I need something on a later build, I can think, hey, I've got this in part or that part, or it's in that box, and go find it.
If you have that kind of space, that makes perfect sense.
And he says, pardon the dig, but I laughed when you guys were talking about storage requirements of keeping all of those boxes. You two could share a single tote. Well, that's probably true. Our output is low compared to some of the other folks out there in the model sphere, even the podcast sphere for that realm, for that matter. But that's okay. That's us. And I think that response was not indicative of our own situation. That was a more of a generality.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not filling up landfills with empty model boxes from completed kits.
Yeah, we don't have this problem, but verdict's still out of whether that or not that's a good thing.
True enough.
Here's another one along the same vein, Dave. It's from our friend Derek Post. Did Derek give us that scotch? I think he did.
I think he did.
Well, if you did, Derek, my better half just put the final polish on that. So good on you, man. Thank you. Random thoughts from this past episode. Fear. He says he doesn't have any, but I do think about it when he do a model based on his skill, or I guess maybe outside his skill. Gloss paints. His gloss paints need work. He's got some Blue Angel aircraft he wants to do, apparently. Yeah, I imagine you do.
Yeah, that's gloss paints are tough.
Box tops, again.
Okay.
The box tops are kept if they are in good condition. Instructions are bounced off scale mates to upload or not. Hey, somebody who actually does that. What do you know? I see them out there. I'm like, wow, I just threw mine in the trash. I wonder if that one's on scale mates or not.
I will admit to actually checking before I throw mine away.
Well, and then he says the ones that do not get uploaded are used by his wife, and she includes them in her art.
Oh, that's a nice repurpose.
That begs a question, right?
Which is?
We're gonna have to see what he means by that.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna need a picture.
And then an aha moment came from our podcast. Unicorn Tears has helped insanely.
Oh, yes. There's a reason it's called Unicorn Tears. It is just one of those modeling products, and there are very few of them, where that particular product or tool makes a huge difference in your modeling. I mean, most tools or products make a small incremental improvement. Unicorn Tears is one of those ones that makes a major change.
He's got a question for the wheel, so we'll tuck that one away. Thank you for that, Derek. Man, we got a lot of these, Dave.
I know.
Jason Campbell. Now, he was the one who airing a little dissatisfaction about the shop talk at the show in Chattanooga about the gunpla stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, he's just sending us some details about the gunpla life in his area and just thanking us for giving it the attention that we did.
Well, it deserves it. It's an up-and-coming area of modeling. It's got skills that are different than and complementary to other areas of modeling. It deserves the same respect as any other genre.
Well, it wasn't about this in particular, but it reminds me of something you said, and it could be applied to the folks who are so constipated about this topic. You can either get on the train or get run over by it, because this isn't going away.
No, absolutely.
And they do some amazing things, and you're going to learn something if you look, even if you don't like big robots or whatever you want to call them. Seriously. Oh, Rock Rozak from Detail and Scale.
Okay.
Now, they're running this ad over at the Model Geek, so we won't steal too much of their thunder, but Rock says he's delinquent reaching out to us and very appreciative of the kind words and positive comments we've given them in the past, especially the A6 color and markings book we mentioned last time. So what's Rock got now? They got another book, of course. F-117 Nighthawk Stealth Fighter, an illustrated developmental history.
Which is a great choice because, those things were quote unquote retired many, many years ago. And then only in the last couple of years have we learned that they're not retired, that they're being used for out at Red Flag for stealth aggressor training. They're being used by the Navy in their attack simulations off the coast in their fleet problems. And it looks like the 117 is going to be around flying for many, many years. So it's a timely choice.
This is actually a re-release for them. They've opted to republish a book that was published prior by Specialty Press back in 2006. Now, it's a pretty comprehensive book on the F-117, and Rock says that a portion of every sale will go to the Stealth Fighter Association, a nonprofit that serves the F-17 community. And again, he thanks us for helping him out. So Detail and Scale, check it out. If you like the F-117 and like good aviation books, you can't go wrong. He sent me a graphic that we will put up on the web page.
Good.
Well, on the Facebook page.
Sure.
How about that? John Pisano, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And he writes in pretty often. Well, he was working on Hasegawa's bow fighter, close to finishing the project, and lost a propeller on the floor.
Oh, please tell me you didn't step on it.
I'm going to tell you he stepped on it, Dave.
Oh, well, there are aftermarket solutions.
That's what he's asking.
Yes.
He got an aftermarket resin replacement. Took about 2 weeks.
Yep.
Blades in a separate hub. So it was a little harder to manage, I guess.
Well, if you go to UMM USA, they sell a tool specifically for lining up propellers where you have separate blades and hubs. It comes in both a 3-blade and a 4-blade version. And I own both of them. I can highly recommend that. And it assists greatly in doing that lineup that needs to be done.
That is exactly what he's asking, Dave, because he got this thing and it was separate parts. And he's asking if there's an online store that we would recommend.
Boy, I'm Karnak.
You're Karnak.
You realize
right.
Nobody under my age knows who Karnak is. Which, by the way, if you ever go through YouTube, a lot of the Karnak routines are on YouTube and they're great to watch. But yes, UMM USA, they have a tool for both 3 and 4 bladed props for that exact situation. And it's not terribly expensive as I remember it. So go check it out.
I've got one for my little Arado float plane. It's a prop from, is it Quick Boost?
Yes, it could be.
And it's got the alignment jig in it with the, you got to do them a blade at a time, but it's set up to where that's not a problem, but it sets the, the pitch for you.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always the difficulty.
So UMM USA.
Yep.
It's turned into an expensive accident.
Yeah, well, but then again, you'll have the tool and you'll be happy that you have it because you'll need it some point in the future.
You think he's not going to drop anything else ever? Again,
Yeah, right. That's right.
Oh man, Dave, Rob Hallinger, and he's talking about Kate torpedo bombers.
Oh yeah, it's
He's
on my mind.
He's appreciated because he's building the Nakimo 48 scale kit.
Yeah, but now that's an old kit.
Yeah, that's what he says. It's from his high school years.
It is. That is an old kit. Not a bad kit, but it's gosh, I'll bet you that's 1970s vintage.
At least.
Yeah. If you want a 48 scale Kate, I think that's the only one out there.
Really?
Yeah.
There's some low fruit for somebody.
Yeah, really. Or maybe Hasegawa did. No, Hasegawa, I think, has done it 48.
So in reference to our recent shout out about fine scale modeler returning to its roots, that was me talking about an episode. That's been a while though. And he goes on to say that I mentioned there was really nothing before fine scale modeler in 1980 or so. He says it's not true. And he's right. There scale modeling and military modeler, those did exist, but I guess I should have been a little more specific, I guess. There was nothing, even those magazines were out there, but they did not tackle technique and scratch building and all those kind of, at the time, advanced techniques to the degree that fine scale modeler did. They just didn't do it.
It was a sea change in modeling magazine publication. It was just a revelatory change when you saw the first fine scale, which I own, and you saw the stuff in it. You were like, this is amazing. Even the articles about stuff that wasn't in your area.
I started, he mentions it, the challenge publications out of Canoga Park, California, from the mid 60s up through the late 90s. They published 2 or 3 magazines, scale modeling magazines, and some other magazines.
Hey, I was going to say that's a whole nother story that we won't get into. But Challenge did not only published modeling magazines.
They had models in them.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but the organic kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I get what he's saying, but I guess to the point is, those magazines typically had finished models in them.
Yes.
And they talked about what they did and all that, and there were some how-tos in there. I'm certain. I don't go back to 65 for those magazines. I go back to like 1982 or 3 with those magazines. But fine scale was kind of a step change for me for that, because I just wasn't getting it anywhere else. And
for years, that the fine scale was the only place once they came out.
Well, he also has a topic for the wheel. So, man, we're getting a lot.
We're getting a lot of wheel topics. That's good. Keep those coming, guys.
That's right. Peter Kwong from Vancouver, British Columbia.
Up in Jim's neck of the woods.
I guess so. Well, he's going to have to travel even further to see Jim because of your sales pitches and mine too, I guess, about the Nats. He's decided to put that on his bucket list. And is planned on attending the 2023 Nats in San Marcos. Plane ticket booked, hotel booked.
You are the man. Look us up when you get there. We might even have a beer for you.
We might. And I'd say you're actually taking that off your bucket list if you've actually booked the stuff.
That's right.
It's going to be off your bucket list.
He's checking it off the bucket list.
That's right. So, Peter, come by the table when you're in San Marcos and say hey, and then look for us in the hotel lounge after all that.
Oh,
we'll make Dave buy you that beer.
I will happily buy you that beer.
Okay, this is one listener mail we got. I think there's a couple. They might have spilled over into the Facebook stuff. I'm not sure, but Tim Holland. Now, Tim's in the Model Geeks neck of the woods there in Maryland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Green shirt modeler. YouTube, is that right?
Yes.
The AB schemes on the British aircraft.
Right.
Was not a transposition of the colors.
Right.
AB scheme was a mirror of the colors.
That is absolutely correct. As I have been reminded.
The CD schemes were transposed colors of the AB schemes.
Yep.
It's just complicated.
It does. Thank God they didn't keep doing it that long.
Well, it's probably because it was complicated.
Exactly.
And once you gaffed a plane, did you go back and repaint the whole thing?
No, because there are actual pictures with the Spitfire. You see this in 1940 in the Spitfires and the Hurricanes. And supposedly by the serial code, you knew whether it was an A scheme or a B scheme. But apparently there were ones where they gaffed it. And so there are photos of ones where the serial number indicates it should be a B and it's an A, or vice versa. So that's a whole, there are people out there who know that stuff chapter and verse. I do not. I just know it exists. So if you need to know that, find your boffin. There is a boffin out there who knows in detail all of that information.
And he goes on to say the early bow fighters were introduced in the, when all this was going on. Well, he says summer of 1940, the MAP decided to limit the schemes to just one in an effort to speed production and allow the manufacturers to choose which scheme they wanted to do. So Supermarine chose A and Hawker chose B. And I don't know what Bristol was. He says some early examples were either A or B, depending on the serial number. Interesting.
That is one of those things. You know how you and Evan, when we're all getting together and modeling and talking, and you and Evan start speaking in Stug and all of the different, this plant or that plant, this C clamp, this S clamp, et cetera, there is an entire, just like you and Evan geeking out on that stuff, there is an entire group of people who geek out on all of that AB British early war camo stuff.
And he says by autumn 1940, every aircraft was being delivered in either A or B scheme, but not both.
Yep. They phased it out fairly quickly.
He's got some nice words for Barry Numerick's 109s.
Oh, I have to tell you, when I listened to that episode, I am now filing away as one of my favorite stories, Barry Numerick doing that civilian 109 and looking down and realizing he had put the letter codes out of order. It does my heart good that a modeler as great as Barry can make that I can see me doing that, looking down and going, great googly moogly. So I've got to say I filed that one away as one of my favorite stories.
I hope I get this right. Clement Podonson from Estonia.
Oh, wow.
We got a listener in the Baltic.
Hey, I love the Baltics, man. Great place.
Well, he is clicking through Hasegawa's F4E.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks it's a bit of a pain due to the modular nature of the kit. What do? They chop it up so they can make all the variants from one family mold, probably.
Exactly. And not only that, but the F4, all the F4 family, just kind of like the F18 family, and also the F14 family, they have curves and shapes that are actually fairly difficult to reproduce without, particularly in years past before slide molding and a lot of the, latest CAD stuff. So yeah, F4s are by their very nature challenging aircraft to model.
Well, he's trying to get through his Hossie Phantom stash before he starts the fine molds boxings.
Gotcha.
He's worried he'll never go back to Hossie once he starts.
I sympathize with that set of feelings.
Well, Clement, thank you for listening from Estonia. I've got some friends in Estonia from my military collecting hobby, and I think you may be the first modeler from that part of the world that I've had any interaction with. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And finally, from the email side, after this slog, our friend from New York City, Mr. Michael Karnauka.
Okay, question of the day.
Oh, let's see. He actually gives us two, and I get to choose.
Okay, choose one.
Is there a kit or book that you have had in hand a bunch of times, intended to possibly purchase, but put down a bunch of times, only to find when you finally wanted it, it was gone?
Oh, God, yes.
And you've been looking for it ever since?
I have, yes. Absolutely, I have over the years on several occasions. And what ultimately I have found is the book is always available somewhere. The limiting factor becomes the price.
Yeah, the comma in it.
Yeah, the comma in it. I have had books that over the years I've picked up off of modeling tables and said, I should buy this, but no, let me put it down. And then when I finally say, oh, I need this book, and it turns out that it's completely out of production and you can't find it in any of the normal places, and you end up going to ABE Books and paying a price that hurts significantly. Now, the flip side of that is Jim just experienced there was a book that he's been looking for forever, and it's out of production, out of publication. When you do find it, it's incredibly expensive. And he had less than a month ago, a friend of his reached out and said, hey, you said you were looking for this book. I found it here for this super cheap price. And so because he had mentioned it and people were keeping an eye out for him, he looked and found for a good price a book that he'd been looking for forever. So if you've got those books that you're looking for, tell all your modeling buddies, because one of them's going to see it someplace and they may get you a deal.
Out of all those buddies, there's a few of them out there who will actually make good on that. I experienced the same thing in my collecting hobby, Dave. Talk to people about what you're looking for. And you know who the people are within your circle that are worth telling this to.
Right.
Every now and then somebody comes up with something.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the way it works. You can't have eyes on everything all the time. So
not only that, but pay it forward. Be that guy for your friends too.
Well, Dave, that's it for the email side of listener mail, but I want to go back to Bob Hallinger's one more time because I kind of glossed over that a little too much.
Okay.
He says that you mentioned some information you'd receive on paint schemes for the Kates at Pearl Harbor in early 42.
Yep.
And he didn't find anything on the Facebook page or the show notes and wants to do an exchange if you've got something you can exchange.
I've got tons of stuff I can exchange. The problem that ultimately you're going to have is that the ultimate conclusion you will reach in some respects is nobody knows.
And they can't both be right.
Right, exactly.
They could both be wrong.
They could both be wrong, but they couldn't both be right. There's a bunch of different information, and I've made some best guesses based on what's out there. But when I was going through this, I was talking with Steve Husted, and he had a really good point, which is after 80 years, if nobody knows for sure, it is unlikely that you're going to build your model one way and then the definitive proof is going to come out the other way. So I'll be more than happy to exchange some info with him and let him know what I've found from the sources that I've got, and then leave it to him to leap to his own conclusions.
All right. Well, I'm done now, Dave. That's
Okay.
all the email from the listener mail.
Well, just like listener mail, Facebook Messenger has been extremely active lately. Now, let me just leap into it. Listener Charles Rice is a listener who has come along relatively recently, and he's doing what a lot of listeners do when they find us, is they go back and carve through the entire back catalog of all 82 previous episodes. And so occasionally we'll get an email or a Facebook message about something that occurred in an episode. In this case, it was episodes in the 40s when you were building your Zis 2 gun. And he reached out because he had built the Hobby Boss Zis 30, which is, I believe, the same gun on a motorized chassis.
Yeah, it's the same gun on a Komsomolets artillery tractor.
Oh, the little T20 tractor?
Yep, exactly.
So, and so he reached out and commented on it because it was fresh from the episode he listened, and then he told Mike what he had done, and it exchanged some photos and other stuff. And it's just interesting that we have these past episodes, and many people end up going back and no matter when they found us, listening to these. And it's really kind of neat to be reminded of something that for us is a year and a half ago. So I really enjoyed watching you all have that exchange. Listener Nick Woodside reached out because he has returned to your home area, the Johnson City, Tennessee area. And he was asking about the local club that you had contact with over the years, and you were able to hook him up with the website info for the Appalachian Scale Modelers Association. So hopefully he's going to make those connections and get joined into that club. So
I saw on the group's Facebook page that he had joined that and had asked for information, and they were starting to give it to him. So
good.
Hopefully that works out.
That's great. That's great. An old modeling friend, Ken Front, reached out. I've known Ken over the years just because we were on forums that were the same forums going way back to the beginning of the internet. And he reached out because I'm talking about acquiring this Cameo, and he had acquired it, a Cameo, and so he gave me his input. He said it was probably a mistake for him to have bought a thinner line circle cutter right before he bought the Cameo, given the overlapping nature of what they can do. But he also, and more importantly, showed pictures of a shelf queen that he had pulled off the shelf and was finishing, a 48 scale PBY that he said had been in production for at least 20 years. So it's never too late to finish that shelf queen model. Ken is doing it. Frank Blanton reached out, and here is our Richmond tie-in with my beer.
They got a show.
They've got a show coming up on February 25th, the Old Dominion in Richmond, Virginia, which is where I spent my formative years.
See, told you there's two tie-ins.
Yeah, going into Richmond, Virginia. Now, it's the same day as the Columbus show. We're going to be at Columbus. But I have been to the Old Dominion show previously and can highly recommend going. It was now I went many, 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 many years ago. It was a great show. Really enjoyed it. Richmond is a lovely place, and there's a lot of good history down there. I recommend going. So if you're in the area and looking for a model show on February 25th, the Old Dominion in Richmond, Virginia.
We may have to do that one sometime.
I would love to do that one next year if we could arrange it.
It's a little closer than Heritage Con. Not much.
Well, it's about an hour or two closer than maybe an hour closer than Heritage Con. We'll see how long it takes us to get to Heritage Con this year. We're going to have to do some on the road posting so that people can ride along with us.
Just be like Cannonball Run, man.
Exactly. I get to be Jackie Chan. Justin Ryan reached out to let us know that the Miniature Figure Collectors Association show in it's technically Trevose, Pennsylvania, but I guess that's technically East or West Philadelphia, is going on May 5th and 6th. If you've never been to a figure show, I highly recommend it. Mike and I have on multiple occasions attended the MMSI show up in Chicago, which is a figure show. And man, the work is just eye-poppingly amazing. So if you're in the Philadelphia area on May 5th and 6th, drop on by. It's a 2-day show, and I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. Finally, you, I, and Stephen Lee were having an interesting discussion about marketing by model companies and some of
Yep.
the guerrilla marketing tactics and some of the social media marketing tactics and supplying kits for review to YouTube channels. And we had a really great conversation back and forth. It was kind of wide ranging. It was all three of us participating. And I'm betting eventually we're going to see something long form from Stephen about the subject because he had some very interesting thoughts and observations on it. So that was particularly enjoyable. Stephen, thank you for reaching out and having that discussion.
All right, man. Are you done?
That's it, man.
All right.
So this is the point in the episode where I ask you to please rate the podcast episode on whatever app you're using to help us drive the visibility of it. Also, if you know a modeling friend who's not listening to the podcast, would you please ask them to begin listening? Show them how to do it if they're not tech savvy. Having a current listener recommend us is one of the best ways for us to grow the podcast.
And subscribe too.
Absolutely.
And when you've done that, you want to check out the other podcasts in the model sphere. You can do that by going to www.modelpodcasts.com. That's model podcast plural. This is a consortium website set up by Stuart Clark at the Scale Model Podcast on our behalf. And there you will find banner links to all the other podcasts participating in this mutual cross promotion we've tried to keep going here. In addition to the other podcasts, we got a lot of blog and YouTube friends we'd like to give a little shout out to. First up, Jeff Groves, the Inch High guy, his blog, All Things 72nd Scale, with a little history thrown in every now and then. Model Airplane Maker, blog and YouTube channel from our friend Chris Wallace up in Ottawa, who look forward to spending some time with at Heritage Con for sure.
Absolutely.
And you've already mentioned Stephen Lee, Dave, Sprue Pie with Frets. We had a fun conversation with him this week about the big dust up at one of the big train shows. Funny stuff, man. Oh, things that can happen at scale model hobby stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve's got a lot of long and short form blogs, and we'll see what comes up soon or in the future from our past conversation here. And also we want to mention Jim Bates of Scale Canadian TV and our friend Evan McCallum at Panzermeister 36 on YouTube, both these gentlemen on YouTube. Keep it up, guys. We look forward to seeing you hopefully both at Heritage Con, and check out their YouTube channels, people.
Evan tells us there's another video coming soon, and I'll tell you, I'm really looking forward to it. Finally, if you're not a member of your IPMS national organization, IPMS USA, IPMS Canada, IPMS Norway, Australia, Israel, whatever, please consider joining the national organization. They're a bunch of guys who are giving up their time to run a national organization to help put structure into the local clubs. They do a lot. A lot of it's behind the scenes and unseen, but there are people giving up their modeling time to make modeling better for everybody. Please consider joining.
All right, Dave, let's take a quick break and have a word from our sponsor.
Plastic Model Mojo is now brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com.
Come and make it in Texas, Dave.
How long to wait?
Not long, buddy. At the time of this recording, we are 177 days away from the 2023 IPMS National Convention in San Marcos, Texas.
That is going to be here before you know it, man. Blink of an eye.
And I like that we were starting to get some listener feedback about folks who are going to be there. So,
well, and that you got to say the best part of both Las Vegas and Omaha was hanging out with all the listeners. It was the best part by far.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it.
Expect more of that.
Oh, God, yes.
Well, Dave, Mojovian Special Agent 003 has a brief report
Okay.
And we should probably get into that. Tex-Mex restaurants.
Oh.
Let's discuss.
Oh, God. I am just like I had to get a steak when we went to Omaha. I am looking forward to some Tex-Mex in San Marcos.
Well, we'll keep this one brief because he was in San Marcos over the holidays, I think, and then he's going to be back for the New Braunfels Model Fiesta show. Is that right?
Yep.
And then, Brandon says his Tex-Mex expectations are deservingly high because he's from Houston, and he wants to make sure that the places he recommends are top notch for a couple of guys driving all the way from Kentucky.
That's right, man.
So he's going to keep searching out these places in the San Marcos area. But he says if we make it down to Green, he can pitch a Cantina del Rio. It's right next to the Green Hall music venue and about 20 minutes from the show venue. He says that one's definitely worth checking out. Can't go wrong there. But he's going to try to tighten up the recommendations in the San Marcos proper area. So we look forward to that. So.
Oh, yeah, I am looking forward to it. I went to the 1995 Nationals in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and one of the highlights of that convention was all the really great Tex-Mex food in New Mexico. In fact, it come back to Kentucky, it ruined me for eating any Tex-Mex in Kentucky for 6 months or a year. Because it just is not the same. And I'm sure the same is going to be true in Texas. And it's one of my favorite cuisines, so I am really looking forward to it.
Well, folks, stay tuned. We'll have more from Brandon and what else is happening in the convention locale. So looking forward to it. Not only is this a modeling podcast, we can help you have a fine culinary experience.
That's right. And maybe listen to some good music.
That's possible in Green, I guess.
Yeah, there's musical references on this podcast all the time. It certainly would be enjoyable if we were sitting eating Tex-Mex, listening to good music.
Well, then now he closes by dropping a little teaser about a secret whiskey bar. So,
ooh, always
more on that later.
All right,
or not, because we want to keep the secret.
That's right.
So, folks, make your plans. Attend the national convention if you can, and hopefully we'll see you there. Well, we'll move right on into the Benchtop Halftime Report, Dave, brought to us by Tackett Z, our friend Ed Tackett there in Louisville. Please visit www.tacketz.com to see what Ed's been up to. The must-have tools for the model maker. Now, Ed makes a lot of convenience and storage items for your workbench via 3D print, so check it out. He may have something you can use. And again, this pegboard dropper bottle paint racks, I got my eye on those, Dave. I got to finish my workshop space and get me some of those.
Yep. There are several things that my benchtop is reaching critical mass yet again, and I need to get it organized. And those organizers that he does, I really need, I've got some, I need to get some more. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, man, what is on your bench? I know what's on your bench, but why don't you tell us about it?
What's on my bench is the Arma P51, which, thank gosh, because my jury trial canceled or settled, is moving along. I've been doing something pretty much nearly every night or every other night. The major sub-assemblies are now going together. This kit continues to amaze me with its engineering. Now, it's not simply a shake the box and pour it out the other end. It is detailed. It is very fiddly. You need to, I mean, it's been highly engineered, and it is intended to be put together in exactly a certain way. And if you don't respect it, if you don't pay attention, if you don't clean up those parts, things aren't going to fit. But by the same token, if you do give it that respect, it's a neat model. It is certainly, along with the Tamiya Zero, next level modeling. It is a generational leap forward from the stuff we saw in the 2000s and the 2010s. I continue to be amazed by it. And I got to say, I'm halfway through this one, and I can already see myself doing another one. And that's pretty much the focus until I get it done and we go to Heritage Con. This is the focus of my entire workbench.
You can have a Kate to enter in Heritage Con?
I will have the Kate there. Yeah, it's done. And I'll definitely take both it and the P51 and maybe one or two other things. But getting the Arma P51 done and getting photographs done, that's my sole focus here for the next few weeks. So you're going to be hearing about this for the next few episodes. What's your bench look like?
Well, Dave, the catapult for the E16 project is back on the bench, and I've started doing all the highlight painting on it. Man, I had a tear last weekend. I think I put in 6 hours on that thing, which is a lot for me. It may not sound like a lot to some folks out there, but for me to get 6 hours in over a weekend is pretty darn good.
Well, and that's a challenge I have, and I don't know if it used to be I could sit down at a bench and go and go and go and go. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have a tough time modeling for more than about an hour, hour and a half at a stretch, just simply because, my explanation for it is really old age. I mean, things start to hurt, things start to, there's only so much focus I can give it before it used not to be that way. So I guess it's just one of the many things with old age. Are you encountering that?
I don't know if I'd chalk it up to old age, but by the time all the other duties around here are done, it's 9:00.
Yeah.
And I'm up at 5:40 to get things going, to get my youngest to school by 7:30. So it's gotta take it when you can get it. And I if I can get 6 hours over a weekend, because usually one of those days is shot. I mean, usually, like last weekend, I was in Knoxville at a swim meet with my oldest. So, but still, somehow I got 6 hours in.
Well, listen, you chalk that up as a win. Especially if, like I said, if you can grab a weekend and get a whole lot done, on a weekend.
Other than that, I mean, hopefully that's going to move into more the washes and oil paint rendering kind of work here soon. I've got one more side of the catapult to do before that can start, but it's close.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sizing up the scheme of the airplane. You were joking there's not much to the scheme, but and that's true. There's not, but I need to figure out how I'm going to do it, because it's got some demarcations on the pontoon struts and the pontoons that aren't trivial.
Right.
So hopefully, I tell you, when I get the thing in the wash and oil paint stage on the catapult, I think I'm going to start working on the pawl. I think I'm going to probably paint the underside color soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with that.
And that's
Japanese navy gray.
Yeah, once you've primed it, giving it the underside color is easy. You don't have to do any masking or any of that, other than the canopy, of course. But just hit it, get it down, and then you can choose to then put the top color on, or you can play with the bottom colors to your heart's content before you do the top color. I mean, there are several ways to go, and none of them is particularly right or wrong. It's just what you feel comfortable doing.
Yep, that's true. I think, I've got a bunch of pre-shading and marbling I want to do on it before I actually base coat it. So I guess I need to do that first.
Yep. Prime it and then go with that. Now, there's something else you've done modeling-wise recently, and you need to tell people about it.
Oh, what's that?
Plastic Model Mojo's first product.
Okay, we can call it that, I guess. That some folks may have seen on the dojo that I modeled up a Soviet era kilometer post marker from based on a German photograph I picked up off German eBay a while back. I'm probably going to use that on my KV-85 diorama, but I'm going to be printing that up, and if folks want them, drop us a note and we'll tell you how you can get some. I've also put it on up on Cult 3Ds, which is a download page where if you've got a printer, you can download the STL there for a fee. It's just going to go to support the show, and it's really not that big a deal, but I thought it's kind of cool to throw it up on ScaleMates.
That's right, to have our first plastic model Mojo product. Interesting thing about this, and I don't want to just gloss by it. You mentioned this comes from a German World War II wartime photograph where apparently somewhere in the Soviet Union, they had along a road these kind of the equivalent of the French mileposts.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Or the old Roman mile markers. But it's an interesting design because it's an obelisk with the base having a star on it. And then there's a place for the number for what mile, or I guess technically kilometer marker.
Exactly.
And we assume that they're it's a black and white photograph, but I assume from that photograph that we think it's white and red.
It's probably red, yeah.
Yeah. But it's just such an interesting little, it's ephemera, but it's really interesting little ephemera that adds a real sense of color and time and place. It just, I really liked it. I can see why you saw that photograph and snatched it up immediately off eBay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'd never seen one I've seen a few like traffic signs and road signs.
Yeah.
Which I think Mini Art needs to do at some point.
Well, they're doing everybody else's. I'm assuming they will eventually.
They've done everybody but that one so far. And maybe the current political situation might have something to do with the current reason they're not doing it.
Oh, I had not even thought of that. Oh man, you're right. That could be the reason that they've done French, Norwegian, German, Italian, etc.
That said, I can't really understand why it wasn't the first one they ever did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've got a couple of photographs. Like I've got a picture of a T-26 that's like crashed into a line pole that's got some kind of traffic sign right in front of it. And I'd love to do that, but I don't know what the sign colors are. And that's not really the reason I haven't pursued that project, but It would be nice to know what that stuff is and not have to think about it too much.
Well, you mentioned the power pole or the line pole. Is it the type with a single pole, more like what we think of as an American style, or was it that European style where it's almost not a lattice work, but it's kind of assembled from beams and multiple? It has hollowed out center.
No, it's not like those concrete poles.
Okay,
it's a wooden pole that's got a secondary pole of the same diameter, probably, kind of supporting it at 45 degrees.
Gotcha.
And then the tanks run up against it, and then there's this, I don't know, it could be a no passing zone sign for all I know, but whatever it is, it's right in front of the tank.
Well, you'll have to post that on the dojo and see if anybody has
somebody can probably tell me. I mean, maybe their signs haven't changed all that much. I don't know.
I would bet that's probably the case.
Other than that, what else have I been working on? I think I probably talked about the hot wire cutting of the road bed for the KV-85 base last time.
Yeah.
Not much progress there. I need to assemble the other set of tracks to get them on the tank so I can pose everything. I think I've selected which of the two options I've created for myself that I'm going to use. But other than that, stay tuned. I haven't made much progress there yet.
And you've done one run of tracks, but not done the second?
Right.
And the tracks were Tankcraft, right?
Yes, they are. They're very nice, but
yeah,
hopefully more on that later.
Good.
That's all I got on my bench right now.
All right. Well, it's an active bench. Go check the dojo out, and we both post occasionally. And once we're getting to the point where I'm probably not going to post a lot more pictures of the P-51 because I kind of want it to be a surprise when it's completed. But go check the dojo out because there are posts of what we're doing and what other modelers are doing?
Yeah, I think the Just Making Conversation guys posted the correction of the mismatched tire tread. I probably wouldn't have posted that one.
Well, I admire what they did. I think that was that was a gutsy move on their part. So I'll be interested to see all of these models finish.
That's right. But
my
now it's a ding if you don't do it.
Yeah, that's right. My goal is just to finish the model. I'll tell you what, given the modelers that I'm up against, all I want to do is finish and not be embarrassed by it. So, Mike, it's been a while. Are there a lot of faves and yawns that you've seen?
There's a few.
Well, see, this is interesting because to me, there hasn't been much since the last time we did this, but there's been what I think are some interesting developments. So as we go through this, I want to kind of broaden the conversation a little bit more than our usual faves and yawn.
Well, we've done that in the past. So yeah, I think in my selection, I've probably done that as well. So
go ahead.
The first is a fave, and it's a joint fave.
Okay.
Tamiya and Border models have both announced Jagdpanzer L70, the A version, the Alket version, which is the tall superstructure on the Panzer IV J chassis.
Yeah.
Anybody paying attention out there knows that the posse got dibs on the reveal on that in North America, at least. And that Tamiya kit looks pretty nice.
Yes.
You're kind of locked into the first production series with that kit because it's got Lincoln length track that are pre-molded for 4 return rollers. And the later version had 3 in the simplification of that vehicle. So the Tamiya, you probably get a superior fitting kit and an easy build. It looks like the Border model is going to facilitate both production series for that thing.
Well, and the commentary that Evan has, of course, this is a vehicle that Evan is very familiar with, and some of the commentary that he's been making and sharing with us regarding what's on the kit and what's missing from the kit and why it's missing from the kit, because of the particular prototype that both manufacturers may have based the model on, has been endlessly fascinating to me. Again, I don't, this isn't my area, but it's just really interesting that he points out these things and why they make a difference and where they make a difference.
Well, the whole timing of this is interesting because way back when Dragon was a new company, they came out with this vehicle. And it was really a pretty bad kit.
Yep.
And I bought one. I don't know where it is now. Probably in the trash. I never built it. It was just not a good kit. And I've been thinking about buying their later release. They've got a couple of boxings, I think, of this vehicle that are, they're of newer lineage than the original. So now there's these other 2 options, and I'm going to end up with one of them. I don't know if I end up with both of them, but I could.
I'll be interested to see what you and Evan conclude from the modern Dragon kit, the Border kit, and the Tamiya kit. Exactly what different versions can all be built from those.
And there's actually another kit. The TriStar had a kit of this vehicle that Hobby Boss is boxing now.
Oh, really? I did not know that at all.
Now,
wow.
I don't recall I bet if I got on the old Perth military modeling site and look back through those reviews, I could find what's up with that kit, because that's kind of the vintage of that thing, is when that website was kind of the big thing.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't doubt that Evan might eventually take on the task of taking those kits and looking at them and telling you, okay, you can build this version and this version and this version by combining this and this and this, which, if you got to do some cross-kitting to get the one you want, it's nice to at least have that option.
What about you? You got a first one here?
I've got a first and an only fave, and it's not okay. It's not. I don't want to say it's not really a fave. Baroth has announced a Vacuform CA133. I have no business buying a Vacuform model. I am not going to build a Vacuform model, but I happen to have Aviation Usk many years ago released a short run kit of the CA133. And I like the CA133. It's an Italian high wing trimotor transport. In particular, there's a photograph and this is one of those things where I turn into Mike and I am inspired by a photograph. There is a photograph where the Italians, when they were fighting in East Africa, what is now Somalia and Eritrea and all that, the Italians transported CR-42 fighters crated up inside of a C-133. And there's a fantastic photograph of a CR-42 that's disassembled and it's in a crate, an open frame crate, and it's inside the fuselage of the C-133. And it's a really inspiring photograph. I know I'm never going to build the Aviation Usk kit, so the chances of me buying the Baroth kit and using parts of it to assist in building the Aviation Usk kit are probably less than zero, but I'm probably going to do it anyway. And it is what it is. And it will be in my estate sale at some point, I'm sure. But I have an affinity for that aircraft, and other than that photograph, I have little or no explanation for why. So you got a favor, Jan?
I got another one that's got me interested.
Okay.
And I've mentioned this before, but I think since we've talked about it, there's some new news.
Okay.
I'm gonna at some point this year take a science fiction diversion.
Okay.
Because AMT under the is it round 2?
Yep, I know what's coming.
Yeah, their 32nd scale TIE fighter. We talked about this during our call-in show.
Right.
Cult TV Man is taking pre-orders on that sucker now.
Yep. So
I'm gonna get in line, I guess.
I wonder if it'll be available at Wonderfest this year.
I don't know. It's a good question. Wonderfest is a little later than usual. It's in June this year.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my other fave. I'm going to be picking that one up at some point and seeing what sci-fi is all about.
I think there are great things you can do with it. And it's a great palette to have fun with and painting and weathering wise to play with. So I can see the attraction. Now, my next one's not a favor, a yawn. It's I noticed this, and isn't this interesting? Obviously, before we do these faves and yawns, one of the things I do is I go and I look at scale mates, what the upcoming releases, particularly in 72nd scale, but also 35th and other scales. And in the last few months, the proliferation of 3D printed items has just exploded. Now, we've talked about in the past 3D printed figures, 72nd scale 3D printed figures, and noted the proliferation of those. Well, now there are manufacturers coming out of the woodwork. And what's interesting to me is that it's almost all accessory stuff. And at Las Vegas and at Omaha, there was, I don't want to call it a moral panic, but there was a panic over what 3D printed kits were going to do to the hobby and how you should treat them. Should they have their own category, particularly if they're not multi-part kits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I've noticed is, at least for the moment, Sure, there are people like Vargas who are releasing full 3D printed kits, and there are other manufacturers doing that as well. But much more of what is coming out as 3D printed are accessories. Things like that kilometer marker that you printed up, the tool clamps, oil cans, no-tech lights, whatever it is. The vast majority of the stuff getting announced on ScaleMates is 3D printed, and the vast majority of the 3D printed stuff are accessories rather than full items. I wonder if that's going to continue, and I wonder if it's going to lead to a renaissance that's equivalent to when VLS first started doing a whole bunch of accessories and resin. And suddenly, the diorama category was filled with models where you could walk down and it was almost like looking at a VLS catalog, because you could spot the resin Buddha or the little roadside shrine or the cemetery cross or whatever it was, and was used again and again and again by everybody when VLS was about the only game in town. But I just noticed it. I don't know what it means. I don't know where it's going, but it's an interesting trend, and I'm interested to see, particularly since anybody with CAD skills and a high-tech 3D printer, a really good one, can put out a lot of really good product. I'll be interested to see how far this goes and when it reaches a saturation point.
I don't have a yawn either. It's not so much a yawn, but more of a curiosity about the direction of things. And it's the direction of things based on Airfix's 2023 announcement. Because on the aircraft front, 72nd scale got pretty much skunked by Airfix.
Yes. Yep.
Which is interesting because arguably that's their legacy scale.
It is. They are 72nd scale. That is, everyone knows them from their 72nd scale line.
But I think that's getting quickly relegated to nostalgia. It seems, and they've had some new announcements, but not this year. Other than there's one.
Right.
What was it? F-35.
Yes.
But it seems that they're moving from their legacy and really striving to be a player in the 48th scale realm. Yes.
And also they've made a foray into 35th scale armor, cooperative with Academy to begin with, but then they're now doing more stuff on their own, although I think Academy may be tooling some of it. I will tell you, like a lot of 72nd scale modelers, we were shocked that the announcements for 2023 were so devoid of new 72nd scale stuff. But then again, I'm not sure. 1 year does not make a trend. One data point does not make a trend.
And neither does two, to be honest.
Well, true enough. And so I'm interested to see where this goes long term. I do think that it is inarguable that Hornby, Airfix, and their parent company, Hornby, have decided that they are not going to limit themselves to being a 72nd scale manufacturer who occasionally does something else. They are clearly going to at least be a more full and well-rounded manufacturer. Now, whether that means they're going to kick 72nd scale to the curb, or it just means that instead of being the preeminent scale for Airfix, it's just now one part of their line, I think only time will tell. Additionally, Airfix and its relation to Hornby. My understanding is that Airfix is the arm of the conglomerate Hornby that is doing the best. And so you kind of wonder, are they going to focus on Airfix because of that? Or are they going to use the income that Airfix is providing to shore up the other parts of the Hornby empire? I don't know. I would love to sit down with, the CEO of Airfix or the CEO of Hornby and have those business discussions. Because again, I'm kind of geeked out on the business side of the hobby, and so I would love to have those discussions. But at least for now, we've got a data point. Where that leads us, I don't think we're going to know for a few years, but it is an interesting observation.
Got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Getting the right sized base for your model, diorama, or vignette can be difficult and time consuming. Bases by Bill has the solution with their all-new custom-sized display bases. Offering sizes of 4 to 30 inches, you choose the dimensions you want and get the size you need every time. And they can laser engrave the base with a unit emblem or text, all to your specifications. Better still, shipping is included within the lower US 48 states. Built by modelers for modelers, Bases by Bill has bases and display cases for any type of model and for any size. Visit their website at basesbybill.com to see their products or to get your own custom-built base or display case quote. Use the code MOJO at checkout to apply a 15% listener discount to your order. That code again is MOJO for 15% off. Bases by Bill for all your model display needs.
Well, Dave, our special segment tonight is 2023 Charting a Course. We're already a month or so into the new year, so we're a little bit late, at least publicly. We've been talking behind the scenes for sure. Yeah. So what are we going to do on this journey, man? Hoist up the John B. sail.
There you go. I like that song, by the way. Well, I was looking at it, and at least the first half of 2023, my modeling course is kind of charted for me. Now, normally that might bother me a little bit, but I don't find myself bothered. Basically, what I'm looking at for 2023 is I have to get the Musaru done. I cannot embarrass Plastic Model Mojo. I have to uphold the standard you set. And while I don't expect to come away with a victory, I at least have to present a finished model. So that is my focus for the next month and a half. I've got then, because for the model geeks, they followed my suggestion for what their group build for the Nationals should be in 2023. I feel a certain obligation to participate in that group build and finish a model. So immediately upon the Musaru being done, I will be diving into getting a Navy MiG killer done. I've got the last touches on the Kate. I've also got the B-52 and 144 scale. So the first half of my modeling year is pretty much set for me. Now, normally that might bother me a bit because I don't like deadlines and I don't like getting sucked into group builds and such. But actually, I'm feeling pretty good about this. My real question is what I'm going to do after the Nationals and what I'm going to do for the rest of the year. And I've got a bunch of choices, and at this point, I'm not thinking about it too hard. I've got some potential candidates. I've got some things I want to do that are that have moved up the to build list. But right now, I've kind of decided I'm not going to stress on that until after San Marcos. And then once San Marcos comes, then I'm going to sit there. By that time, I should have a relatively clean slate and I'll get to make some decisions. Not only that, but assuming in the first half of the year I can get done the models I want to get done, then 2023 could be the most productive year I've ever had. We'll see, but and maybe this is just me being happy that the Musaru's going well, that my case settled, that I've got more time to model, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe I'm being overly optimistic right now, but then again, at the beginning of the year, you should be overly optimistic. You should have goals that exceed your grasp. I mean, if not that, then what are dreams for? So I like the way 2023 is shaping up for me. How about you?
Well, on the build front, I really need to get the Paul done so I can shut up about it. And I want to get it done.
Right.
Because I've got other things in that vein, in that genre that I want to do. And I'm not going to start any of them until that sucker's finished. It's a learning experience. So I'm taking my time. Obviously, I'm taking my time, learning a lot, but,
yeah,
you know, probably a little procrastination in there too. The KV85 project is not so hot that I feel like I need to get that done. I mean, that's a subject I've wanted to tackle for, 12, 13 years now. And I got off to a couple false starts and now I think I've got a solid plan to get the model that I want built, and I got a way to do it. But still I've added some, you know, the articulated suspension is something I've never done really before, and trying to keep the bar high on the bass, like I tried to do with the Zis 2.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the work kind of at a high level. Well, that's a relative term. Try to keep it equivalent to the subject, the primary subject. Anyway, would probably be a better way to say it. And I've got a couple things I want to start this year, and you know, I'm not going to say I'm going to hope to build X number or finish X number. I read a post a week or so ago that kind of resonated with me a little bit about do the best you can with what you can get done, and don't worry about finishing so many. And that may run counter to we've talked a little bit about a philosophy that you were exposed to recently about build faster, your skills will catch up. I'm not sure I've bought into that yet, but I understand where that's going. But I think I just want to do the best with what I feel I can swallow.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, Mike. I actually have come, and this is a fairly recent revelation for me or thought for me, that now I think finishing a model brings great satisfaction. I ultimately want to have a collection of models in my case that are things that I want to have. So finishing is important from that respect. But I'll be honest with you, I have more and more in the last 6 months, and I bang on with Jim all the time about teasing him about finishing or not finishing a model. Speaking of which, he recently finished one. Kudos, Jim. But if you're getting enjoyment out of sitting down at the bench and building and doing what you're doing, I'm not so sure that finishing is the be all and end all. I do think it's important because I do think that finishing something gives you a sense of accomplishment and spurs you on to build more. But I'm not sure that that's really the biggest part of it, because with this Arma Hurricane or Arma P51, I'm sitting down, I'm building these little sub-assemblies. It's been super enjoyable on its own as its own thing, solving this particular problem or seeing engineering-wise how they did this or how they intended something to be put together. is satisfying in its own right. So, I think I'm coming around to a philosophy that finishing isn't quite as important as I may have previously believed it to be. Now, again, I don't want to say you shouldn't finish but
Yeah, we don't want to justify our own procrastination here.
yeah, exactly. That's the difference. That's the difference between it. If you're getting enjoyment out of what you're doing, that is the single most important thing about a hobby, because that's what a hobby is. A hobby is an escape from the pressures of life. And if you're getting enjoyment out of it, whether you finish is secondary. But by the same token, you're right. You don't want to simply justify procrastination when you could finish and you don't for, fear or some other reason. But I'm getting more and more enjoyment out of this hobby. And maybe part of that's getting older too. I do wonder what effect getting older has on making the hobby more enjoyable. But as far as 2023 goes, we're sitting here talking about modeling and what we want to accomplish and what I want to finish and whether or not finishing is really that important. I'll tell you, a big part of what I'm looking forward to 2023 is you and I are sitting here planning out all of the contests we're going to go to. And I got to take news for you. That's got me as jazzed as anything about anticipating what model I'm going to build next.
Well, I want to get stuff done for sure. And I'm looking over my shoulder now at what I need to get done. But I tell you, aside from finishes, something I hope to do more of is something I've started doing already in the first month and a week of 2023 is, our guest and friend Steve Husted mentioned early on our first segment with him about he was saying like 30% of his modeling time is spent experimenting.
Yeah.
So I want to keep doing that. I think I've tried to embrace that philosophy a little bit, and I look over and I've got a T-34 turret paint mule, and I did some stuff on it over the last 2 weeks, and it was because I want to I've got some things I want to try. Some of them are things I've seen done by other modelers. Others are things I've seen. Like I notice a paint behaves a certain way when I do something, and I'm thinking like, well, wow, I wonder if I could port that over and like do the entire model that way, and what would that look like? And I've been trying to do some of that stuff, and it's all behind the scenes. I not stuff I've run off and posted to Facebook or anywhere, or even share with you to a large degree. But I want to keep doing that because I think, I don't want to learn a new technique on the one I'm trying to make nice. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yep.
So I've got this KV85 and I want to have all my new approach to doing Russian green kind of in my head before I don't want to be trying to figure it out on the KV85. So I'm experimenting.
Well, and that argues for things like out of the box builds of simplified kits. I mean, take a Russian kit, Russian hobby boss kit of something, and just you have no emotional investment in it. You're not building it to display. You're not doing anything other than using it as, hey, I'm going to put this together only because I want to do and try this or that. And if it doesn't work out, you know what? I'm going to throw it in the trash or repaint it or do something else with it. And I do think that there is huge value in that. Not only huge value in that from a skills and technique standpoint, but I think there's a huge value in that in a learning standpoint. One of the things that a hobby, I think, to be a successful hobby for an individual, again, I talked about, relaxation, that what a hobby should be is something that you enjoy and is you find relaxing. One of the other things is I think that as you improve your skills in a hobby, it brings you additional enjoyment. Just like a bass fisherman, uses a new technique or a new lure, even finds a new fishing hole or whatever it is. Or a golfer tries a new club or alters their swing and it improves their game. That brings a satisfaction in and of itself. Even if you don't score better in your round of golf, the fact that you learned a new technique and you learned something new in and of itself, I think adds to the satisfaction and therefore the enjoyment of the hobby.
Another thing that I've found interesting is this 3D printer I bought. I get out there and I look what other people are doing, and there's some folks out there doing some pretty amazing CAD modeling and printing on their particular printers.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's someplace I'm going to end up. I don't know, maybe. I don't know if it's a goal, but it could certainly be. I could certainly sneak up on that and backdoor my way into something like that. But what I've noticed is since I've had this thing, the way I've already implemented it or utilized it, there's some really tiny detail parts on the launch trolley for the E16 that I did. Some of the first parts I printed on this thing for reuse. The tower for the catapult is 3D printed.
Right.
And then I've done this little obelisk, this little kilometer marker. I mean, it's kind of a quick and dirty CAD thing based on a real photograph, but it's kind of reaffirmed my position that I wanted a tool and not another hobby.
Right.
Because the things I've done were well within my skill set already, and I've been able to knock them out and get the parts I wanted really fast. And it's not turned into this game of what's the most intricate thing I can design and see if I can print it.
Yeah.
And that could be in my future too. I don't know. I'm interested to see where that goes in 2023. I'm going to use this thing a lot, I think. But I don't think it's going to be knocking out some yet to be done 35th scale kit.
Right.
It's probably not what's going to happen.
Well, that goes back to my faves and yawns comment, where at least so far, it seems that a lot of the 3D printed stuff is, for want of a better term, bonus stuff. Stuff that you can do in 3D printing that would take much more time to do as a resin cast effort and adds to a model or a diorama or whatever, but doesn't replace any of the things that we think of as traditional modeling. And I'm interested to see where this develops. I think 3D printing in the next 4 or 5 years is going to be one of the most interesting parts of the hobby, along with Gundams, science fiction, and kit lighting. I think those are probably areas where we're going to see a lot of rapid growth and development. And I kind of am anxious to see exactly what that turns into.
Sure. What else you hoping for 2023?
Well, this is related to the thing about shows. I think it's inarguable that you and I are getting, in the last 2 years, a crap load more enjoyment out of this hobby than we have in the previous 10.
Yeah.
And that is all down to the fact that we interact with so many more people. The nationals in Vegas and Omaha were mind-blowing from a social interaction standpoint. I will tell you, I've been to 26 nationals over the years. I've had a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever had more fun in my modeling life than at the nationals Friday night in our hotel room in the adjoining hallway with all of these other modelers who I will again point out that modelers are in general some of the just nicest, greatest, funnest people to hang around with. And Omaha, it will be a high point for me. One that I'm not sure we're going to ever top, but I'm looking forward to trying.
In some regards.
At least, yeah. At least as long as we don't end up in jail somewhere. But that is for 2023, and it goes hand in hand with contests because that's where we get these interactions. Although we get them on the dojo and with direct messages and other stuff too. I am just looking forward to spending time at shows, talking with somebody I have never met before, who I may or may not have interacted with online or in the dojo or wherever, and just exchanging information. Some of those have been some of the most pleasant memories that I've had of the last 2 years. And really, that's the best part of modeling is the people. So, not to sound all sappy and, we're not going to sing Que Sera, Sera or whatever, but I'm really looking forward. It's one of the reasons I am looking forward to going to Canada. I mean, no American in his right mind should look forward to going to Canada. That shot was for Jim and Evan and Chris. No, I love Canada. But seriously, I am looking forward to the fact that we have managed to, and it was unclear whether we were going to be able to arrange our lives such that we'd get to do it. I am so stoked that we're going to spend an entire weekend in Canada with a bunch of really great modelers that we know and have become acquainted with because of the podcast. And I not to go all Joe DiMaggio, but I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. I'm looking forward to it.
So you're going to arrive in Canada wearing a ankle length fur coat there, Joe. Oh, that's Joe right. Namath. I'm sorry.
That's Joe Namath, not Joe DiMaggio. Although if I could show up with Marilyn Monroe on my arm, it didn't work out. My wife might not like that, but other than that,
didn't work out for Joe either.
It didn't work out for Joe either, or Marilyn for that matter.
Well, folks, what are you doing for 2023, and what would you like to see from us in 2023 from the podcast standpoint? I know we have some stuff we're hoping to do, but we're not going to go all into that just yet. And you'll learn about it when you hear about it. Let us know what you think about 2023. The pandemic is hopefully way in the rearview mirror at this point, and things are settling out, and the shows are getting better, and it's just going to be a good time.
It is. It absolutely is. And we do want to hear, we're serious. What is it that you want? If you've got a goal in 2023, or if there's a skill you want to pick up in 2023, or there's a particular model you've always wanted to build, and this is the year you've decided it's better now than never, let us know, because those are great kickoff points for discussions for us, and therefore for interactions with the community. So, Mike, we're here toward the end. I assume your modeling fluid is just about wrapped up.
Well, I've doubled down. They're both wrapped up, and it was really, really good.
This Russell has promise, man. You're really.
I don't know. It's a little bit up on the sweet spectrum versus my fave, my bullet, my fave, or possibly my former fave at this point.
Gotcha.
But it's not too sweet. It's a good pour, man. It's got a lot of flavor. You're getting that from the 10-year aging, and it's just
right.
It's really good, and for the price point, it's exceptional. Really, I mean, I really
now when you refer to sweet, you're not going Maker's Mark sweet. It's a step down from that.
No,
right?
It's a step down from that for sure. But it's
okay.
It's enough when you just start up that curve. I
Yep.
think you get a flavor enhancement before it becomes the dominant kind of thing you're experiencing in the bourbon.
Gotcha.
And that's
Yep.
kind of where this is. It's
And that might make Russell a really good introductory bourbon for people coming into bourbon, because that's one of the things that Makers has always been, is a nice way to introduce people to bourbon, where the sweet kind of distracts from everything else to begin with.
Makes it easy. But I don't know. I think I wouldn't go there. I would start somebody on a Basil Hayden's still, because the flavor.
That's always good choice.
Yeah, it's not so sweet, but the complexity's there.
Yeah.
Well, what about your beer, my friend?
Well, I will tell you that Stone has done themselves proud. Delicious IPA is delicious. 7.7% ABV, so it's not Budweiser or anything. It's got some body to it. There's a little bit of an aftertaste to it. It's not unpleasant, but I can't quite identify what the aftertaste was. I will tell you, you think of IPAs as hoppy and bitter. This one was not. It was very, very smooth from the first sip. So I can endorse that. I would drink that again in a heartbeat.
Well, sounds like you had success, Dave.
It is. So, Mike, we're here toward the end of the episode. I assume that you have some shout outs. I'd like to shout out the folks who have contributed on Patreon or PayPal. It really does help us. We've been doing a lot lately in regard to trying to expand what this podcast is and all the things we do. And there is no way that we could do any of that without those of you who have chosen to contribute either through PayPal or through Patreon. And I want to thank you. Now, I'm sure Mike will do so as well.
I will. If you want to join the ranks of those folks, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/plasticmodelmojo. There you can make a recurring contribution from any amount from $1 on up, and Patreon will handle the recurring billing for you. If you'd like to make a one-time contribution or manage your own contribution, you can do that by going to www.plasticmodelmojo.com. And there in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you will find a heart icon. That icon will take you to our PayPal page, and there you can make a donation of any size you want. You can come back and do it every month if you want, or just one time if you want, whatever you want. We appreciate every stinking penny you guys are sending us. It has made a lot of things possible for us regarding bringing you show content and making it easier for us to edit, to bring it to you with less work from our part. And we just thank you, and thank you again for doing that. It's been great that you guys vote with your wallet. Thank you.
I'd like one more shout out, and that is Mr. Stephen Lee. He and I had a really good discussion that I mentioned earlier regarding, modeling and the way different companies are marketing their products in the modeling space. And it was just really an enjoyable conversation. Now, again, I kind of geek out on the business side of the hobby. I don't know if that's my attorney background or whatever, but I find those discussions really, really enjoyable. And Stephen had a really interesting perspective. And then bringing in the conversation from a recent train show was just really great. And so I want to shout out him and his blog. He does a really, really good job. And I don't want this to sound like damning with faint praise or whatever, but he's very thoughtful about his perspectives on all of this stuff. And I really enjoy and value that. So I want to shout out Stephen. And if you're not a regular reader of Sprue Pie with Frets, you're missing some really, really interesting insights into modeling, as well as just some really good modeling.
Well, I've got another one, Dave. It's kind of on the same vein. Michael Karnauka. He sends us those questions
Yes.
every couple of weeks, but he and I had a nice conversation via email about model sphere stuff to kind of keep it at a high level. And I just wanted him to know that I appreciate the conversation. It was really helpful for me and served as a bit of an affirmation to what we have going on here. So look forward to more from Michael.
Well, and you know what? It's really interesting that he comes up with an interesting and thought-provoking question each and every time for us to include in the podcast. And nobody asked him to do that. We didn't recruit him. He's doing that for his own contribution to the conversation. And it is super appreciated, because every time the question is something that I have to go, let me think about that for a minute. And sometimes I'm surprised by my own answers. So I second that. Really, thanks a bunch.
Well, Dave, it looks like we're near the end of another one. And as we always say,
so many kits, Mike.
so little time, Dave. Take it easy, man.
You too.